And for more on this crazy debate, Mike Bako joins us, sports editor, dailynational.com. Good to see you. This is really a big deal because I thought about this the other day, and I'm thinking to myself, this could be the end of the PGA if they really split up. I mean, imagine having like two NFLs or two Major League Baseballs and players play for one and the other players play for the other. Now you can argue about, well, who's the best, and there's no way to ever know.
Yeah, right now with the PGA Tour, what they have going for them, for now are their TV deals. Once those expire, if things go the way that they go, with so many prominent players going over to the LIV tournament, so many tens and hundreds of millions of dollars for the top echelon guys going over there, you see this bifurcation going on of, okay, I'm going to watch the PGA tournament because I know the tournaments, I know that they're playing in the Masters, these mean something. But when you look at the leaderboard, you're missing guys like Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, fan favorites like Dustin Johnson. So there's going to become a tipping point at some point. It hasn't happened yet, but the popularity of the PGA Tour is going to wane if more and more players go to LIV. The problem with the LIV Tour is right now, unless you're going to the internet and watching a stream on YouTube or going to the events, there's really no way to follow the events.
Right, and so just so for our viewers, which I know some are golf fans, but the old way was, you play, it's not 54 holes, but you play 4 days, and it's kind of a quiet, very traditional golf tournament. The LIV Golf style is, I believe it's 54 holes, and it's shotgun style where they all get going, and I heard they even drink beers on there. So it's very different, and they're paying their players, whether they win or lose, a ton of money to be on the tour. So I think to myself, if we were golfers, wouldn't you take the guarantee from LIV any day and make sure you get paid out for the next 10 years? Because if you go on tour and you don't do well, you don't make anything.
You don't make anything. And that's the real problem, and that's the real issue that people are having. On the one hand, you look at the Saudi fund that is backing this. They have hundreds of millions of dollars in the Saudi Entertainment and Athletic Fund. When you think about the political implications, certainly when you saw a guy like Phil Mickelson go over with a $250 million contract to go over there, and some of these other players, how do you turn down that much money? Do fans really care about that? Phil Mickelson has lost sponsorship deals. Bryson DeChambeau has lost sponsorship deals. But does it equate to the money that they're having? These are businessmen with high-powered agents. They're sitting there looking at a check for $100 million for just playing, not even for winning these tournaments.
Right.
Now, there's some interest in that as well.
So the controversy, to sort of hit the next shot, so to speak, the controversy here is the fact that LIV is sponsored by Saudi Arabia, right, and their sovereign wealth fund. This is the I honestly wonder, would it be different if it was sponsored by like Boeing or Microsoft? But this is sponsored by a sovereign wealth fund in Saudi Arabia, which has a very complicated relationship with the United States. And there are some people who are now accusing the players of essentially selling out for the money. And I've gone back and forth a couple times on this, but I'm going to let you answer this tricky question here.
Well, therein lies the tricky question. If I had the answers to everything, we might be in a different situation in terms of discussing this. But the big topic that this falls under is something called sports washing. Can you spend your way out of different controversies? We keep mentioning Phil Mickelson because he was the first one to go over. He was the first one to throw his lot in with Greg Norman. Certainly with the Saudi government, with the killing of the journalist Khashoggi a few years ago, he even referenced that. He says, these are not guys that you want to get into a deal with, but they just have so much money. And that's what these players are going for. And let's make no bones about it. These are not political scientists. They do not want to talk about politics. When they're asked about it at the tournaments, they don't want to answer it. The majority of fans really don't find this to be the break point, because when some of these players have played in PGA Tour events, the Masters, they're still getting cheered. So therein lies the problem, that on the one hand, they're taking the money, they're going off, they're playing in this tournament, they're causing irreparable harm to the PGA, but they're lining their bank accounts, setting their families up for generations of wealth.
Yeah, and look, no one should be mad at any player for lining their pocketbooks with money, because that's kind of the whole point of all this. I mean, when you win the golf championship, you get a ton of money. It's just that the losers get very, very little. I feel like if Saudi Arabia and their sovereign wealth fund would just have more partners and more of a diverse sort of investment base, maybe that would appease some of the critics out there. Let me get to my last point here is, what ultimately is going to happen? Can the two coexist 2, 3, 4 years from now? By the way, this just started this year. Like, this is happening in real time. We're discussing this. But give us a few years. Can the two actually survive, or does one have to die?
I think that's what you're going to see in a few years when some of these big LIV contract players run out, when some of the TV deals cross over. Does it become a situation like the NFL and the USFL back in the 80s where they were at odds and then eventually, they kind of like went and parted their separate ways? NBA and ABA, NFL and AFL from the 60s. I don't see the Saudi Arabian government backing away from this. I think what they want to do is not necessarily put the PGA out of business, but almost become, the authoritarian, factor in this relationship and have everyone playing under the LIV rules, the LIV banner, because that's what they're in it for. They're not in it just to bring over these players for this 1 year and these tournaments. They're in it for the long haul.
Well, they're doing a great job of disrupting the sport thus far. Mike Bako, good to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for helping us.
Good to see you.